Dude, we're in beautiful Stillwater, Minnesota. And we're laughing and kind of having a grin right now because today was like an unexpected day for the both of us.
Yeah.
More for you than me.
Yeah.
I was happy to see all of this excitement in one day. But
Yeah.
tell us what's going on today.
About 5 minutes before you showed up, and about 30 seconds after I showed up to the restaurant, the water main right outside my front door exploded and was shooting up about 10 feet into the sky.
Yeah.
Which in turn was leading to it also leaking in my basement. So now I have a beach in the basement.
I love the alliteration.
I have about, what would you call that? That looks like a beach landing's worth of sand in the road, which is a very busy road in front of us, and a warped sidewalk right outside the front door.
The warp sidewalk to me is the most interesting thing because I've never seen concrete move like that.
And the only way they're going to be able to move it is just break it apart and rebuild it. I don't think they're going to be able to put that back.
It doesn't look like it. It doesn't seem safe for the public access.
Nope. So that's fun.
Is this the most fun you've had as a business owner? And I mean fun in the most like ironic way.
I think that this encapsulates owning a business to a T in regards to you literally never know what you're going to get. And you literally can have everything planned out and you could think your day is going to be one way or situation's going to be one way, and it can completely turn on you. And you don't really have a choice. You kind of have to go with it and figure it out. It's kind of owning a business, owning a restaurant in a nutshell, really.
Yeah. I've been talking to a lot more, I've just been paying attention to some of the like qualities that business owners have. And I mean, do you have like that just like, do you have a bit of a squirrel mentality in a way where you're kind of like, do you get distracted easily? Or are you very, yes? Okay.
Yes, very much so.
But I think this like prepares you for that because like you just get hit with a new shiny object, positive or bad, and you just go and attack it.
It satisfies that part of the brain. It satisfies that, for better or worse, I don't know how you describe it. It's there. And so, yeah, having a business, having a restaurant, definitely having things thrown at you, it's definitely not mundane. It definitely doesn't get old. It definitely doesn't get boring. There's always some shit to have to deal with or come up. So, yeah, it is fun. I joke about it a lot with my wife and stuff, but it is fun. It's the most satisfying role that I've ever had.
I must say you handled it really well.
Thank you.
So congrats on that.
Thank you.
You're like not sweating at all. You're not panicking. You're not crying or anything. And I'm not saying any of those behaviors are not warranted.
Yeah.
But you are just like calm, cool, and collected right now.
I kind of go with it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll figure it out. Like, it was happening. It's, we'll figure it out on the tail end of it.
Is this the first time you had to call insurance?
Yeah, this is the first time I've had something like this happen.
Yeah.
I've had a few people get hurt accidentally, nothing too major. But I think, this would be the first time I've had to deal with a claim for a loss of revenue and potentially loss of product. I haven't looked at my beer cooler yet, but my bar manager says it's pretty bad in there. So, like I say, we'll deal with it. We'll figure it out. There's nothing I can do in this moment. You know what I mean? We'll pick up the pieces and probably going to be closed today, but that's also part of the business, Yeah.
That's why it's important to have insurance.
Yeah.
You literally are like just doing what you can right now.
Yeah. Yep.
And as a business owner, like what are the things that instantly came up to you or that were the things that you had to do? Obviously calling insurance was one of them. What else?
Calling insurance and then contacting my employees too. That was actually what I did. I called Derek, my bar manager, because he was about to be in, and then I kind of put him in charge of contacting the immediate people that were supposed to be here, kind of let them know the situation, and then I let my other cook that was coming in know, and then just kind of letting the staff know what's going on, because it affects them too. So
it sucks.
Yeah, it does suck. So we got to take that into account. It's not just my livelihood; it's a lot of these other guys that guys and girls that work really hard for me every day. it sucks to have to be in this situation, but because we have insurance and because we have a good team willing to pitch in, we'll get this sorted out, and on the end of it all, hopefully be able to make it right for everyone. And I don't get to make pizzas for customers today, but hopefully we're able to not be out too long and get everyone what they need for the inconvenience.
What do you know about insurance? Because I think this is a topic we haven't really explored, and I'm very curious because I think for someone who is looking to get started in the biz, they are like, well, what is insurance? How much does it cost me, and what will it cover? Those are my initial things.
Yeah, I think having insurance is something I've had since doing my pop-ups. I mean, I've always had a form of insurance. Back then, it's as little as like having liability, which is something you should have when you do a business. I've always had that when I was a photographer, when I was doing pop-ups, and especially my insurance is larger now because I have staff, I have inventory, I lease this property, but I have hundreds and thousands of dollars of equipment and inventory and stuff like that. So you want to keep that stuff safe for sure. And then situations like this too, like this wasn't a fault of my own. This is something that just happened, through the city outside my door. So there'll be loss of revenue, potentially loss of product. The product that would have in turn made me money, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily being recouped the true cost, but it's what could it have made me, you know what I mean? So yeah, insurance is really important.
By that, you're talking about like if I lost an $8, will cost you a $2 beer, you lost $8 because you could have sold that.
Correct, yeah. And that's how you should look at like a food loss perspective too, especially when you're looking at like maybe you burn something or you mess something up or you drop something, or worst case your cooler goes out. I might have like $2,000 of raw material in there, but that's $8,000 to $10,000 of potential revenue, gone.
Damn, that's how they look at it?
I hope so. I guess we'll find out.
Well, to be fair, I just this month, was it this month, early June, maybe late May, my car was totaled.
Okay, yeah.
And it was parked on the street. I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't driving it, but some teenager decided to swipe it and total loss.
Yeah.
And I found out in that process that you don't get paid out based off of what your car is worth via Kelley Blue Book and what you could sell it for. You get paid what it's worth to replace the car.
Yep.
So like retail value, if you were going to go to a dealership and buy the exact same car,
that
tax,
day,
title, license fee, that day that you got hit. Not like a month later when the dust settles, but like on May 21st, what your car was worth if you were to buy it at a dealership. So that to me was a nice surprise.
Yeah, they cover you, and that's really nice for auto stuff, which is great, and I think similar to home. But yeah, I guess we'll find out on the business side. Like I say, I haven't had to do a claim yet, but I do know I have insurance, and it's really important. But at the minimum, especially that liability, because if you hurt, if someone gets hurt in your property, whether it's staff or customers or whatever, you would be on the hook for it if you didn't have insurance. Paying people's medical bills, whatever it is, you don't want to pay for that.
Let's talk about those early days as a pop-up, because I am willing to bet, myself included, a lot of people don't have insurance for that thing.
Probably so. Yeah.
Right? Because we're just getting started.
Yeah.
We're like kind of like testing the waters.
Yeah.
And usually insurance is a burden we don't want to take on, but it's like a risk we're taking.
Yeah.
So tell me about like, where did you get your insurance from, if you remember?
I think I did State Farm. I think I was able to tack it on to our home, auto, life.
And it was like just general liability insurance?
It's liability for like a business.
I see.
Yep. So you'll anytime you do anything, you should be creating a business. You should be creating an LLC at the minimum. And those are free to do, or cost less than $100. You should always be making an LLC for anything, always. So once you create an LLC for a business, then you just get that business insured for liability. So, say, especially when I was doing the pop-ups, but also like when I was doing photography, I was doing wedding photography, architectural photography. Anytime you're doing something on a site where there's potentially people there and things can happen outside of your control, you're responsible for whatever happens if something happens. So that's where insurance covers you up to like $1 million, $2 million. Worst case, someone dies. That's how it covers you.
Cooking with hot ovens is risky, potentially.
Yeah.
Cooking with gas, fire, all that shit.
Yeah.
I've definitely thought about it.
Yeah. I would recommend it. I think it's a good lesson in just building out your food costs, because if you want to get further in having a business, there's overhead. Yeah. And there's overhead. There's 2 tiers of overhead that I look at. There's stuff that you, I don't know how I'm trying to put it. There's like variable and non-variable overhead. Like a lease or a rent. That's not really variable because you're locked in on what you pay. Hourly labor, that's variable. You need to control that. Food costs is variable. You need to control that. Insurance, I would say you can shop different plans, but I would treat it as non-variable. You know what I mean? Like that's just part of the cost of doing business. Yep. Yeah. So I would build it in early because, I know how much I liked, say you do a pop-up, you make $2,000. It's like, oh, sweet, I made $2,000. Well, how much of that, what was your food cost? Did you have to pay other people? Was there gas? Did you have to use your vehicle? What other stuff did you have to get? Plates, silverware, napkins. Then should you have had insurance? Did you have to use your phone, to contact the client, the customer? Should, pay for that stuff? So then you start to look at where can that $2,000 you made get put towards stuff that helps you or hurts you,
Yeah. I don't track the phone. I did track my recent rental car and the time it took me to like Uber there, the labor it cost me for the rental car delay because they were so busy.
Sure.
So I'm tracking all of that on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But that $2,000 that you made on a pop-up dwindles greatly the minute you start putting the numbers on paper and seeing, oh shit, my food cost was actually 20% when it should have been 10% on a pop-up. You know what I mean? And like if you translate that into a real business, is that sustainable?
That's a restaurant, you know what I mean? Like that, in a nutshell, that's what it is. Every day I have sales, every day I have overhead. And at the end of it all, day after day, week after week, month after month, you hope to have profit.
Okay. And please finish.
That's just inherently the risk you run, the high risk, high reward of having a restaurant and being successful or not successful. And the challenges that come with it, because it's not easy.
There's a lot of overhead.
There's a lot of overhead. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of, like I told you, things that you prepared for, you planned for, you were ready for, and shit you weren't. Like quite literally. Yeah. My whole day was planned perfectly around, you being here, I had everything set, I was ready to go, and it just goes out the window.
Check my DMs just when we had some downtime, and you had messaged me like maybe minutes before I got here. I'm like, oh shit, maybe I should have just turned around because I felt super bad.
Oh, no.
And I'm, again, so grateful you're making the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about profit though. And I just want to preface this by saying, like you said earlier, successful, and we tied that into profit. And I want to be super clear here that that's a lot of the times my measurement of success. It's not everyone's.
No, it doesn't have to be, no.
But also I think that you can only run at a little to no or negative profit for so long.
True.
Before you have to nix it.
Exactly. It depends what your goal is. I know what my goal is with this brand, with this venture, is to do more. So to do another form of this concept, to possibly do a food truck, to do more. So it's crucial to do everything I can to ensure that we're building up money or reserve to be able to do that, so we can hopefully do, future ones at low debt or no debt. You know what I mean? So, money in the bank, if you're profitable, if you're successful, if it goes towards your goal of doing another restaurant or another concept, well, now you have that money sitting there where you can just go do that without having to go find outside help. And that's a measure of success to me, if you're able to do that. If you want to just have one mom and pop shop and your salary is what you make, that's successful too.
Just depends on what you define as success.
Just depends on what you want and works for your business.
I think one thing to add while we're on the topic of like getting debt and outside investors is that tackles on your profitability as well, because interest is one of those fixed costs. And so that comes out of everything too.
Yeah.
But if you were to pay cash and take on no debt, people have their differing opinions on whether they want to take loans for the business or not, but then that just ultimately affects your bottom line.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. It again just kind of depends on your opportunities at hand and how quickly you want to move on stuff and what your personal and professional goals are. And no one can make that decision for you other than you. But I will say it helps when you are the sole owner or the majority owner of a business. Then you're able to make those decisions and kind of have those conversations with yourself, because the more people you bring in, especially people that might be silent or putting up money for equity, they're just looking at their bottom line is how did they get their money back.
Right.
Where my bottom line is likely different.
Yeah.
So the less of that you can have in your life, the better.
You have partners for here, right?
I do not have any partners anymore.
No. You bought them out.
I did, yeah.
That was your goal back then, right?
That was
when
my
we
goal.
last talked.
Yep.
When you started, your partner was the person who helped develop this place. Is that, am I right?
It was a group. It was a group. Yeah, it was a small restaurant group that's in the area here. They have a couple restaurants, and I took this space over from them. They bought a property down the street, moved down the street, so I took this space over from them. And my goal was to always own my business and have my future. And we just got to a point, I got to a point pretty early on where I prioritized my future over my, what I could make right now. And it just kind of made me realize that I had my own vision for what I wanted. My goal was to always have it be my own. So that's just what I prioritized doing, and was able to make that happen a lot quicker than I thought, and I'm very fortunate for that.
When I hear prioritize, I hear sacrifice.
You could look at it as sacrifice too, yeah.
Yeah, so like what were the sacrifices, or like what did you do and what did you not do to get that goal?
There was trade-off because, there were a couple opportunities already for expansion to another restaurant. But
and you could have expanded faster with that group if you wanted to.
Yep, but that would have got them further involved. That would have
harder to get out on the back end.
Harder to get out on the back end. That would have tied up the money that we had been accruing for the next thing. That would have, it definitely was a sacrifice for my future. But by prioritizing, okay, maybe I thought I was ready. I feel very fortunate that maybe I'm not, because now it allowed me time to learn more. Not to say that I definitely don't have it all figured out. I learn new shit every single day. I learn how much of a challenge this can be every single day. But 10 months ago, 12 months ago, it might have been a little ambitious to go for 2 already when 1 is pretty challenging.
I'm so happy you kept it together.
Yeah.
Because it would have been, I think you found success pretty early on with this restaurant, considering you were able to buy out partners. We can get into the numbers if you're comfortable, but like to have that money coming in and thinking you're hot shit on top of the world, it would have been easy to forget your original goal of like complete ownership and go on to the next big thing thinking you'd be even more hot shit. Not saying you have an ego or anything, but like that could have been happening in anyone's mind.
Sure. Yeah. It could have been a really risky decision, and I'm fortunate the way that it's played out so far. And again, I like to look at things, also I might have been happy with having a second location, and I bet I would have figured it out too. But it would have been an extra huge taxing burden on my stress levels, on my life, on all that kind of stuff. So there was a trade-off, and now it's kind of nice to build a better product, build a better team, build a better reputation. So then I think we're set up better for the future. And I know the future is more limited to just, my success or my failure, not a group's.
Right. Where was that second location at, out of curiosity?
So wanted to do a second location in Hudson, which is where I live. That's where I had my pop-ups. And that's where I'm pretty set on trying to get to next.
You'll get there.
Yeah, because it's my community. Stillwater's been great. It's a neighbor community to the one I'm in. They've been nothing but wonderful to us. We're really happy to be here, especially on this main drag here with a lot of tourism, a lot of great regulars, a really, really great food scene. But yeah, Hudson is my home. It's where I've been for coming up on 30 years, and that's kind of where I'm passionate about being as well.
That's awesome.
Not one or the other, but both.
While we're on the note of your past pop-up, just going back to the profit conversation a bit as well. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what your profit was after everything during those days?
I want to say I was running probably and I did some reinvesting too. Getting into this restaurant, I had 150 Lloyd pans. Yeah. I mean, that's a big investment. We have some of my tabletop ovens, that's $5,000. I did some reinvesting and stuff, but what I was able to bring to the table to be basically the seed money for this was about $20,000. And in the pop-ups, I want to say in 2020, what was the last year I did it? 2022? Yeah, 2022, I did about $110,000 in sales. That was almost 20% profit line, which is very big for a restaurant. Restaurants, 10% is the goal. 8% is acceptable, 13 to 15 is great.
Yeah.
So 20% in the pop-up days and having staff was really good.
Is 20% with reinvestment dollars included?
Yeah, that was after reinvestment and everything, yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, mm-hmm. I think, so it could have been even bigger had you kept it kind of small or not scaled up.
Yep. But you talk about sacrifice. I didn't take any pay during that time. So I didn't pay myself out of that $110,000 in sales. So that was kind of a sacrifice that I made in that time. I was still working part-time doing photo editing to make ends meet. But it was from the previous year, I took about a 65% pay cut the year of 2022, just so I could keep my money in the business to eventually have a restaurant.
So with that 20% profit, you were just stashing it away to be able to have that seed money
for this. Yep. Yeah. So I didn't keep any of that for myself.
And you weren't paying yourself any labor costs. You weren't part of the labor costs.
Nope. I was free. And I had employees, and I was paying all my employees. So I had payroll, but I did not collect any money for myself.
That's super interesting.
But again, depends on your goals. I was fortunate to still have that ability to do freelance photo editing. I know that not everyone has that ability. Some people, I think the pop-ups need to fund their income.
Their life, yeah.
And I could have probably done that and probably done more and figured that out too. But yeah.
One of the things pizza makers spend the most money on is cheese. Every time I have a catering event, cheese is my biggest ingredient cost. But what if I told you there's a cheese company out there that lets you earn cash back for every pound of cheese purchased? I'm talking about Baccio Cheese. And their Gold Club Rewards members receive their rewards card every month that can be used wherever Visa is accepted. So the more cheese you buy, the more you can earn. Literally, you get paid to use Baccio Cheese. Now that is cool. Learn more at Baccio Cheese using the link in the show notes. Let's talk about pan pizzas for a quick second. What are you using to press out your dough? I found out that whatever fat you use greatly affects the flavor of your pizza. And that is why the only brand I trust with my pizza is Cordo olive oil. Taste is everything, and other brands and other fats pale in comparison. Do you want to taste the difference? Go to cordo-olive.com using the link in the show notes. You can purchase a bottle there, or if you're an operator, you can get a free tasting. Just message me and I'll connect you with them. I'll leave my contact in the show notes. Thank you, Cordo Olive Oil, for sponsoring the podcast.
I know you wanted, we can make some pizzas before you got a jet, and there'll be a little bit, looks like she still has a little bit to go before second press.
Okay.
And we can make some pizzas.
That's
and
cool.
Yeah, whatever you need, man.
Yeah, let's make a pizza.
Cool.
Let's wrap the profit conversation.
Cool. Yeah.
And then I'll ask you my final question.
Cool.
You had mentioned earlier like 10% is good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, under that, like I heard recently somebody was at 3%. And like they're at a bigger number, but still like
a higher volume, so.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. Actually, I don't know what I'm saying relative to like what an average person would make just on a regular job. Like 100,000 is, I would say they're far from that.
Okay.
I don't know what your volume is here. Mm-hmm. But still, 3% doesn't seem like a lot in terms of profit.
I would say no.
Yeah,
no,
unless you're doing like a few millions.
You'd have to be doing like several million, like 5 million or more, because it doesn't, it goes pretty quick, I would say. Like, I mean, I'll tell you, last year we did 12-month run, we did 1.6 million. I was hoping to do 1.82, a little short of that, but definitely not mad about that for the first year. So, of that 10%, 15%, you're looking at $160,000, $200,000. It doesn't go that far, especially if you're going to build a new restaurant from the ground up, 2, 3, 4, 500,000. That's a couple years here of not taking profit, keeping that money here to go build another. So it doesn't go as far as you think. If you're doing maybe 5, 6, 7, which very large restaurants are, 3% might be fine, but I'm thinking that if you're doing 5, 6, 7, you probably want closer to 10, because you probably want that 500 grand or more.
Yeah, I was under the impression that some fine dining restaurants run on razor thin margins.
Fine dining I know is a tough one. It's so labor and food cost intensive. I can't wrap my head around my head around that, and I can't wrap my head around like huge restaurants like the big chains, or even, I'm sure you have restaurants where you're at like 200, 300, 400 seat huge restaurants.
They went out of business.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand how, I would never wrap my head around, but I feel comfortable in this range of space. Like, I feel comfortable tackling a $1 to $3 million projected thing. Like, I'm hoping to maybe do like a pizza only type shop. So, last year of that, I sell 49% pizza here. So we did almost $800,000 in pizza. So if I had a pizzeria, I'd love to do pizza only, $1 million or more of just pizza. I mean, that'd be kind of sweet. I think it's manageable.
Yeah. What percentage would you say your bar sales are?
My bar sales, so we're about a 30-70 split. So 30% alcohol, 70% food.
At the bar? Or just in general?
No, just in general.
So 30%?
That's my whole mix.
Okay, got you.
Yep.
And then of the 100%, 80% is pizza.
48%.
48% is
48% is pizza.
30% is drinks.
Alcohol. So the other, what would that be, 14%?
48 plus 30 is 78, so it's 22.
That would be non-alcoholic and the other side of the food menu.
Oh.
Salads, wings, appetizers.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. So if a pizza maker's just trying to crank,
just do nothing but pizza all day, every day, like a slice shop or takeout, stuff like that. I don't know, and that's where it gets into like, I'm making more because I have more variety, but what would I make if I was only pizza?
Yeah, would the profit margins go higher or lower?
That I don't know.
Right.
That I don't know. And I would like to find out. I think my next project I would like to be just a slice shop or just pizza, because I'm kind of curious.
I'm curious too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of had that experience already with the pop-up in a way.
Yeah.
Just pizza, but it's also like your rent there was lower, I'm assuming.
Yep. Yeah, it was a fixed lower rent. I was selling their drinks, but the spread was more like 80-20, I would say, of drink sales to food sales. It was predominantly food, very predominantly food. So yeah, it's tough to say.
Last thing I want to talk about, buying out your partners. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Was that in the contract? Was it up for discussion? Like, was it in the contract prior to you all signing to something? How did that look like?
It wasn't, I'll be honest, that was one of the tougher moments in business. And that's one of those lessons I'm continuing to learn is when it comes to business, you have to leave emotion out of it and try to really leave emotion out of it. And from a business perspective, it was something that I wanted. It had nothing to do with them personally, and it was taken pretty personal. And I wouldn't say it was an easy conversation. It didn't go well, but at the end of the day, it's nothing about business. It was all about just business. Nothing about who the people were or what it was. It was just what I wanted for myself and my future for my family, and getting them paid a very reasonable amount for what they were given in. So I think every partnership comes together differently, and I think the best thing I wish I would take away from this and do this again is I've always heard this too, and now I know what it means. I don't know if it's the first thing or the best thing, but the best thing to do when starting a partnership is deciding how you're going to leave the partnership. And now I see why, because we didn't have that conversation. We didn't set that up. They were kind of just in it to win it for however far this went. And I could kind of see where I was going and where I wanted to go. And I didn't want to bring along silent people. So I wish we had had that conversation prior to that decision being brought up and that request being brought up and made, but we didn't, and that's a tough business lesson for me.
Well said. Somebody had just introduced that concept to me last month about starting a partnership with someone, and they were like, we have to figure it out, but we also have to figure out how we end it, because it has to be clean.
Yep.
And it has to be super emotionless. And I also think that if I had to assume, because they took it negatively, they may have drove a harder negotiation with you. I mean, like, it's possible that it was completely fair and reasonable, but if it were me, I'd be like, and I were pissed, I'd be like, all right then, you want to get out, motherfucker? Like, throw an extra $100,000 on there to make me go away.
Which they did, but they didn't have a leg to stand on because of how the original deal was put in place.
Got it. So they tried that.
They did try that, and in actuality, the deal didn't entitle them to any money. What they had was they had given me the assets of this property as their buy-in, and what I agreed to do was pay them for the assets of this property, but I was not required to pay them for the assets of this property.
Oh.
So what I did was I did what I felt was the right thing, which is what we verbally agreed upon, but that's not how the deal was struck up or written. So that's another thing too. You got to understand your deals and you have to understand your paperwork. And that was more on their end that they didn't understand that piece.
But like, what obligated them to leave then?
They didn't have to, but I also didn't have to pay them for anything in here.
Oh, like making profit? Like,
no, like pay them anything.
Oh.
So like
the partnership was just done?
Well, we could have just stayed partners, but they wouldn't have collected any money from me. And I was majority, so I decide if profits get dispersed or not.
So you could have just, damn, dude, that's some gangster shit right there.
So it quite literally, if I'm being honest, it was quite literally, you can either have $0 or you can have the $250,000 for the stuff in here, and those are your only two options. Because then they were like, well, we want more. I'm like, no, you have two options. It's 0 or this.
Okay.
And so they ended up taking what we agreed upon.
Yeah.
Because the other option was 0.
So you actually did some pretty gangster shit, and it ended up working out. Aside from like, it seems like they may have taken it personally, and it may have been like a potential burnt bridge. At the end of the day, you had to do what was best for you.
Yeah, and you always do, I think, in business. So it's just one of those lessons where if you can try to know where you're going to go with a partnership, know how you're going to get out, know what you're agreeing to or not agreeing to, and try to take your ego and emotion out of it when you're looking at it strictly through a business lens.
What a great lesson. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been so gracious with your time, period. Even with or without this, you've been a great host.
I was looking forward to this, so
Thank you.
We weren't going to let a little bit of sand water ruin our plans, and a rare opportunity for you to be here. So
yeah, I'm glad I was here for it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is.
I'm gonna have to send you the video. You're gonna have to like put in the
let's do it
in the podcast so people understand what's happening.
Will do. Everyone's wondering.
Crazy.
Final question. No right or wrong answer. What's good dough?
Yeah, it's been a while since I answered this question. I can't remember what I said last time either. What's good dough? I think it's a nice, high quality, well thought out, perfectly browned, crunchy dough. That's what I got.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the show and leave a rating if you haven't done so already. You can do that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or you can just hit that like button on YouTube, wherever you're listening. I appreciate you. I love you. Till next time. Peace. Do you want a chance to win a $250 Uni gift card? Well, this is how you do it. Within the next 3 months, if you purchase something from uni.com using my affiliate link, send me your receipt. Each receipt that you send me, whether it's yours or a friend's or a neighbor's, will give you one entry into a raffle that will be giving away a $250 Uni gift card. That's all you have to